For most of my adult life, I've worked as a correctional officer in northern Nevada. I still wear the badge today. It's not a job most people understand or want to. To some, we're just prison guards. Out of sight, out of mind. But the truth is, we see things inside those walls that never leave you. Things no one should see. I didn't always plan to do this work. In fact, I never planned much at all. After high school, I bounced between jobs. Mechanic, warehouse loader, even a bartender. But nothing stuck. One day, a friend who worked at the county prison said they were short-staffed and hiring fast. I needed the paycheck, so I signed up. At first, it was just a job, but over the years, the lines started to blur. You spend enough time around violence, around people who've done terrible things, and it starts to leave a mark. There were nights I came home and sat in silence, unable to explain to my wife what I'd seen, but nothing compared to what happened in 2017, on a night that changed me forever. It was mid-November, the start of winter, bitter cold. I was assigned the graveyard shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., at one of the oldest wings in the prison, D Block. Most of it was shut down years ago due to structural issues, but a handful of cells were still used to isolate high-risk inmates, people who couldn't be trusted around anyone else. That night, I was alone in the tower above D Block. One of the newer officers called in sick, and we were short. The old security cameras blinked in and out. The lights in the hallway flickered like a bad horror movie. I wasn't new to this, though. I'd worked in worse conditions, or so I thought. Around 2:30 in the morning, I noticed something strange on the monitor. Cell D12, supposed to be empty, showed movement, a flicker, a shape. I squinted at the grainy screen. For a second, I thought maybe it was a glitch, but then the motion sensor light in the cell blinked on. I grabbed my flashlight and keys, called it into Central, and made my way down. The hallway was dead silent, just the hum of the old heater and my boots on the concrete. When I got to D12, I looked through the little slit in the door. Nothing, just a bare concrete room. No bed, no furniture. The cell had been decommissioned years ago. I started to turn back when I heard it. 3 soft knocks from inside the door. I froze. It wasn't loud, just deliberate, rhythmic, like someone was playing a game. My skin went cold. I opened the slot again. Still nothing. "Who's in there?" I asked, my voice sounding too loud in the empty corridor. No response. I radioed in again. "Possible intruder in D Block. Request backup." Central said they were dispatching someone, but it might be 10 minutes. So I waited, eyes locked on that door, hand resting on my baton. Then I heard it. My name. Whispered. It wasn't over the radio. It wasn't in my head. It was right behind me. I spun around, heart pounding, flashlight beam shaking. Nothing. Just the hallway, dim and empty. Then I heard it again. Whispered, soft, like a breath brushing against my ear. "Tom." That's when I lost it. I backed up, flashlight scanning every corner, every shadow. When the other officer finally arrived, I must have looked like I'd seen a ghost, because maybe I had. We searched the block together, every cell, every corridor, nothing. But when we reviewed the security footage the next morning, there was something. At 2:31 a.m., the motion sensor light in D12 flicked on. The video showed no one in the cell, but the camera in the hall, that was different. For a few seconds, a figure appeared walking past the cells. No uniform, no ID. Just a man in an old prison jumpsuit. His face blurred, unreadable. He passed by D12, turned to the camera, and vanished. I couldn't explain it. No one could. But what really got to me was the file we pulled the next day. D12 had housed a man named Curtis Eldridge back in the 90s. Convicted murderer, multiple counts. He'd stabbed a guard in that same block before hanging himself with a bedsheet in cell D12. The footage from that night matched his description. After that shift, I couldn't sleep. For weeks. I saw his face in my dreams. Blurry, distorted, staring at me. I heard my name in the quiet moments. At home, in the shower, driving to work. I started drinking more than I should, stopped talking to my wife. I even thought about quitting. But in this line of work, you don't just walk away, especially not when the job becomes part of you. A few months later, something else happened. I was back on D Block, different night. Things had calmed down, but around 3 a.m., an alarm triggered from cell D12 again. Central swore it was empty. They even pulled up the live feed. Nothing there. I decided not to check it out this time. I stayed in the tower, but I watched that cell minute after minute until dawn. At 5:47 a.m., just as the sun was coming up, the light in D12 blinked on one last time. The monitor glitched and then went black. The tech guys said it was a power surge, but I knew better. Curtis Eldridge was still there, and I don't think he ever left. To this day, D12 is sealed. They walled it off after that second incident, said it was for safety reasons. Structural integrity, they called it. But the other officers talk. They hear whispers during the late shifts. Doors creak open on their own. Lights flicker at the same time every night. 2:31 a.m. And me? I transferred out of D Block. I work admin now. Paperwork, parole files, anything to keep me out of those halls. But sometimes, even now, I hear it in my sleep. 3 soft knocks, and my name. Before we dive into our next terrifying tale, make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon. Your support helps keep these chilling stories coming. And if you have your own encounter, drop it in the comments. We might just feature it in a future video. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. I never believed in ghosts. Not really. I thought most stories were exaggerated, old wives' tales passed down by people desperate to feel something beyond this life. But in the summer of 2014, something happened to me that changed everything. At the time, I was a freelance photographer, working mostly on real estate shoots. Nothing fancy, just staged homes and wide shots for listings. One day, I got a call from a realtor who'd found me through a friend. She said there was an old estate on the outskirts of town that needed quick photos for a listing. Big property, big payday. I took the job without thinking twice. The house was located at the very end of a narrow road called Ridgeway Lane. I'd never heard of it. It wasn't on Google Maps, but I followed her directions and drove out there one overcast afternoon. From the second I turned onto Ridgeway Lane, I felt wrong, like the air was heavier. My GPS cut out halfway there. The trees lining the road grew denser, darker, almost like they were trying to block the sun. And then, at the very end, I saw it. The house. Massive, old Victorian style, rotting wood panels, busted shutters, and a collapsed porch on one side. It looked abandoned, not like something you'd list for sale. I called the realtor, confused, and she said the house was owned by a private investor who bought foreclosures. He hadn't seen it himself, just wanted exterior shots for paperwork. No need to go inside, she said. Just a few photos of the outside. Shouldn't take more than 15 minutes. So I got out of the car, DSLR in hand. But the second I stepped onto the gravel, I noticed the front door was open. Not cracked, not unlocked. Wide open. It creaked slowly in the breeze like something out of a movie. I stood there for a second, debating. And then curiosity got the better of me. I figured maybe I'd take a few interior shots too. Earn some brownie points. I stepped inside. The first thing that hit me was the smell. Mold, rot, and something else. Something metallic. The air inside was still. Dust hung in beams of fading light. The wallpaper peeled like dead skin from the walls. But what really stood out was how cold it was. It felt like I'd walked into a walk-in freezer. In the middle of July, I started snapping shots, trying to ignore the growing sense of unease. That's when I heard it. A soft thud. Like footsteps upstairs. I froze, called out, "Hello? Realtor sent me. Just here to take photos." No response. I told myself it was just the house settling, or an animal. But the footsteps came again, heavier this time, and closer. Against my better judgment, I crept up the stairs, camera shaking in my hands. The second floor was pitch black. I used my phone flashlight. The hallway was lined with the doors. Most were shut, but one at the very end was slightly ajar. That's where the sound had come from. I slowly walked toward it, each step echoing on the creaky wooden floor. I pushed the door open with the tip of my boot. Empty room. Except for the mirror. It was an old, full-length mirror standing in the corner. Dusty. Cracked. But when I looked into it, I didn't see myself. I saw a woman. Pale. Long black hair. Wearing what looked like a hospital gown. Her head was tilted at an unnatural angle, and she was staring directly at me. I turned around. The room was empty. I looked back at the mirror. She was gone. I stumbled back, nearly dropping my camera. That's when I heard the whisper. Right behind me. Help me. I ran. Down the stairs, out the door, back to my car. I didn't stop driving until I hit the highway again. I didn't even bother calling the realtor back. But the story doesn't end there. That night, I went through the photos on my camera. Everything looked normal, until I reached the last shot I took inside the house. The one of the mirror. She was in it, standing in the doorway behind me, clear as day. Her eyes were black, hollow, like they'd been scooped out. I deleted the photo immediately, but when I checked my laptop the next morning, it was back. Same image, same woman. This time, her face was closer to the lens. I wiped my hard drive, reinstalled everything. Didn't matter. The photo kept reappearing, and then the dream started. Night after night, I saw the same woman. Sometimes she was in the mirror, sometimes standing at the foot of my bed, always whispering the same thing. Help me. I started digging. Turns out the house at the end of Ridgeway Lane had a history. In 1979, a woman named Rachel Morgan was committed to an asylum after suffering a breakdown. She was accused of setting a fire that killed her 2 sons. Said voices in the mirror told her to do it. When she was released in 1983, she returned to that house, lived there alone for years, until she hanged herself in the upstairs room, the one with the mirror. They say her body wasn't found for 3 weeks, that the mirror was covered in blood, even though she didn't bleed. They say anyone who sees her reflection is marked. I tried everything, moved apartments, burned the photo card, even tried to destroy every mirror in my place. Nothing helped. She always came back, always with the same whisper. Help me? It's been almost 10 years now. I still see her sometimes. In glass, in windows, even water. I've stopped trying to fight it, because I finally understand what she wants. She wants to be remembered. And now, you've heard her story too. So if you start seeing strange reflections, if you wake up to whispers in the dark, you'll know. She's found you. For a few years after college, I worked nights cleaning offices. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid better than retail, and I could listen to music or podcasts while I worked. The best part? I could afford a place of my own. It was a basement apartment in an old Victorian house that had been chopped into rentals. The landlord lived upstairs with his wife, and I rarely saw them except when rent was due. The place was dim and always smelled a little musty, but it was mine. The entrance was around the back of the house, with a crooked staircase that led down to a heavy metal door. It locked from the inside, which gave me a sense of security. My first few weeks there were uneventful. I slept during the day, worked at night, and kept to myself. Then, one morning around 7 a.m., I came home and found the door to my apartment slightly open. I froze. I knew I'd locked it before leaving. I pushed it open slowly and crept inside. Nothing seemed out of place, no signs of forced entry, no missing items. Just an eerie stillness, like someone had been there but slipped away just before I arrived. I checked every room, even the cramped storage closet at the back, but found nothing. I convinced myself it was just a fluke. Maybe I hadn't closed the door all the way. Maybe the latch was loose. A few nights later, I was getting ready for work when I heard a soft tapping. I paused my podcast and listened. It was coming from the storage closet. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. I stared at the door. It was shut tight. I didn't move. The knocks didn't come again. Eventually, I convinced myself it must have been the pipes or the building settling. I left for work, a little on edge, but still rational. But over the next few weeks, things escalated. Items moved, lights flickered, the air felt heavier. Sometimes I'd wake up drenched in sweat, sure I'd heard someone whisper my name. Once I found my bathroom mirror fogged up, and someone had written the word down with a finger. I scrubbed it off and laughed nervously, telling myself I was just imagining things. But the anxiety grew. I started locking the storage closet with a padlock, even though there was nothing valuable inside. One night, I came home to find the lock on the floor, snapped in half. That was the moment I knew something was seriously wrong. I confronted my landlord, told him I thought someone might be sneaking in, maybe another tenant with a key. He looked at me strangely, then said, "You're the only tenant. The other units are empty. Always have been." That didn't make sense. I'd heard footsteps above me at night, doors opening and closing, the sound of someone humming. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed up, sitting on the couch, with a kitchen knife in my lap, and the lights on. Around 3 a.m., the power went out. Complete darkness. I fumbled for my phone and turned on the flashlight. That's when I heard it. A voice, coming from the storage closet. I never left. I bolted for the door, but it wouldn't open. Something held it shut from the outside. I pounded and screamed, but no one came. The voice grew louder, closer. I turned back and saw the closet door swinging open. Nothing inside, just blackness. Then a shape moved within it, pale hands reaching out. I grabbed my lamp and threw it. The crash was deafening, and suddenly the door behind me burst open. My landlord stood there in a bathrobe, flashlight in hand. He helped me out and called the police. They searched the entire property. No signs of a break-in, no one hiding. But when they checked the storage closet, they found something. A small sealed crawl space in the back wall, hidden behind the old insulation. Inside were bones, human bones, along with a rusted locket and a photo of a young woman. She had lived there in the 80s, gone missing. No one ever found her. Until now. I moved out that day. Sometimes, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I swear I can still hear the whisper. I never left.